Ed here with a Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share a quick unboxing and first look at the Ulanzi wide-angle lens designed specifically for the Osmo Pocket. Now, if you follow my channel, you already know I'm a really big fan of what DJI has done with the Osmo Pocket. Unlike anything on the market, it really delivers cinematic video and decent stills in your pocket, just as advertised, and that's because it does have a mechanical gimbal. If I had to pick its biggest pitfall, though, it's the narrow field of view, and it's something I'm more than willing to live with, but thankfully, Ulanzi, I've seen some others on the market, has decided to introduce, and it's been out for a while now, a wide-angle lens adapter. Now, one thing I want you to be aware of is that you should not attempt to actually power on the gimbal with this adapter on board, because it will throw off the balance of the gimbal itself. After all, this has been basically calibrated for everything that's here. And granted, a lot of people are using different filters, and I have shared filters with those of you that subscribe to the channel. But just like with those filters, no differently here, this is even more top heavy, or front heavy, I should say, than the filters. So you really only want to put this little piece on once you've actually powered the device up. So that's exactly what we're going to do. It is magnetic. So you do run, I don't want to say a risk of damaging this. I have had that with some filters in the past, but the trade-off has been worthwhile. So I'm going to go ahead and just power it up, and I'm going to just put it on right here. So as I mentioned, it's just going to pop right on. And as soon as I have it on, which now it is, I'm going to show you basically at least what I can in terms of how much wider this gets. So you can see the Ulanzi box right there. I'm going to keep it in frame, and then I'm going to remove the wide angle adapter, and you're going to see the difference. Of course, I can eventually do a full review, which I will, but this is again just for today's purposes. And you can see things tightened up quite a bit. So again, we're going from having just the box in frame, which hopefully you can see. And then once I put it on, and you can actually feel the gimbal, and that's worrying me, I can actually feel the gimbal kind of flexing, not flexing, but the motor trying to compensate as I put it on. So I'm going to go ahead and actually just put it on separately and then come back to the box again. But the point here is, as I mentioned, as long as you make sure that you are not going to, and there you can see, it really does widen things up quite a bit. They're calling this a 0.65 times wide angle lens. If I had to guess how much we're gaining, I'm going to have to spend more time with it. But just from looking at it right now for the first time, which is what we're all doing, and again, I'm going to remove it. I can see right now only the box is in frame, but as soon as I take it off, we're losing, I would say, about 15 to 20% from the left and right side. So I've seen a lot of different claims about what angle this ends up rendering. Of course, with a little bit distortion, with some distortion on the edges, like any wide angle lens. But the fact remains that there is nothing else like it on the market. Other manufacturers, as I mentioned, have made something similar to this, but at a little over $15, this is pretty tough to beat, because it is one of those things where if you actually do want something like this, I think there are only maybe 2 manufacturers out there. The other accessory that Ulanzi furnished me with, which I'm going to share with all of you now, and the wide angle is likely to become my favorite, because as I mentioned, not having a wide angle on the Osmo is really the one thing I miss. And in fact, since I started using the Osmo Action, which I really like, and I do think they're basically lining up to knock GoPro off the block, or at least give them a very strong run for the money. The point is that I would like to see the next Osmo Pocket actually have a wider angle. So in the meantime, at least with that first gen product, that will have to do. Now, here we just have the OP, I believe that's 07 or 07. This is an action and tripod mount, so that basically you can attach this to various different things in order, it has the 1/4-20 thread right there, so you can just stick it on a tripod, and it does act as a little Osmo enclosure, if you will, kind of like the frame that you would find on any other device. I'm just trying to see how to actually open this puppy up. Thought I had it right there. Yep, the back opens up, and then the Osmo should just pop right in there. I do have to remove this first, the Type-C adapter for my phone. And at least from their diagram on box, you can see how it's supposed to be positioned. So I'm going to try to follow that. I'm going to slide it down from the, nope, can't do that. I'm trying to find, don't want to scratch anything. I'm trying to find the sweet spot on this. And because from the top, it clearly cannot slide in. So this is where you want to do it, right here. It looks like that's getting in, but I'm also not going to try to force anything here because I do not want to damage the Osmo Pocket in the course of installing this. There we go. So it's just going bottom end first, and then you have a solid fit. Go ahead and close it up. And now you really do have essentially, and there is still room, by the way, of course, for your Type-C, or depending on what type of phone you use, your connector. If you actually plan to connect it to your phone, I mean, I don't anymore. Since DJI addressed firmware, there's really no reason to do it any longer. But now you pretty much have a frame case, and this turns it into an action cam for all intents and purposes. Granted, no waterproofing or anything like that, but you do pretty much now have an action cam, which is pretty cool in terms of having a frame very similar to what you would have with the Osmo Action. So Ulanzi has you covered on both fronts. They make a multitude of accessories for the Pocket. And as I said, the more they send, as long as they're practical and useful, I'm going to share them with all of you. This one will let you attach this to pretty much anything. So that's certainly a nice feature if you want to use the Osmo Pocket as an action cam. I don't highly recommend that because I am worried about the stress that it can put on the gimbal system. But then again, you know, this is all about seeing what you can do, how creative you can be with the Osmo Pocket. And just like the Osmo Action, I think both of these are, you know, two of the most innovative products we've seen in their segment, which is really the action cam market. A lot of people don't look at the Pocket as an action cam, and I understand exactly why. But when you try to figure out the space it does occupy, and the fact that accessories are being manufactured specifically to tailor to the action cam market, and even, you know, Best Buy, the only major retailer in the US that actually has brick and mortar stores and carries the Osmo Pocket, they are, you know, pretty much positioning it in the action cam aisle. So again, from my unboxing, that's exactly what I stressed. I don't look at this as an action cam, but DJI as well as retailers weren't sure where to put it. Of course, now we do have the Osmo Action. So if you want the best of both worlds, even though they both share the same sensor, you've got your wide angle, your waterproof at least to 11 meters here on the right. And then if you want completely stable footage without electronic image stabilization, you have it, of course, in the form of the Pocket. Pocket's quality so far seems to be a little bit better to me than what you get out of the Osmo Action. But having them both, again, as I mentioned, the best of both worlds, traveling light. Neither of them for me is a still camera, because they do have sensors very similar to what you'd find in top-of-the-line smartphones, which is a very small sensor, but they do outperform smartphones, at least so far in my experience. Any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. Hit that like button, and as usual, please feel free to subscribe. Later.